Hey, good morning. It's Friday. Good to be with you as we wind up another week of Breakfast with Jesus. Good to be able to hang out and share some thoughts with you as we get ready for another hopefully fun weekend, right? I mean, hopefully we got some good plans in the works, right, for this coming weekend. We're pretty excited to be starting our second second year really of teaching the chaplaincy training course that we started last year. This will be our second class that we do, and that's going to be tomorrow. So we're pretty excited about that, and lots of good stuff going on. So hope you've got some good plans as well. Good morning to Jane and Donna and Jack. James, good morning. Susan, Derek, good to see you guys. Karen, how are you? Jen Lascano, how are you as well? And David, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys jumping in right here as we get underway. So we're in the Gospel of Mark. We are finishing up chapter 5, and it's been quite a journey in terms of what Jesus has been up to and what's been happening around him, at least in this chapter. And so I started yesterday to read about how he was approached by a synagogue official named Jairus. And, Jesus immediately went with the guy. The guy said, "Please come. My little girl is sick to the point of death." And, without hesitation, Jesus agreed and went with, followed this guy. And then we, talked about the incident that occurred on the way with the woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. Powerful stuff. And I hope you go back and watch it if you didn't see that one. So we're going to finish up the story here about Jairus. And so that starts in verse 35. And so it says, while Jesus was still speaking, they came from the house of the synagogue official. People came from his house saying, "Your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher anymore?" But Jesus, overhearing what was being spoken, said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid any longer. Only believe." Do not be afraid any longer. Only believe. Hang on to that. And Jesus allowed no one to follow with him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And they came to the house of the synagogue official, and Jesus beheld a commotion and people loudly weeping and wailing. And entering in, he said to them, "Why make a commotion and weep? The child has not died, but is asleep." And they were laughing at him. But putting them all out, he took along the child's father and mother and his own companions and entered the room where the child was. And taking the child by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cum," which that's Aramaic, and it is translated, it means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk, for she was 12 years old. And immediately they were completely astounded, and he gave them strict orders that no one should know about this. And he said that something should be given her to eat. Wow. I mean, again, you just see this is so much here fascinating about how this all went down, right? He doesn't even get to the house, and people that were there came out and, said, "Don't even bother. She's already dead." And, Jesus speaks to the father, the synagogue official, and says, "Don't be afraid anymore. Only believe." I'm going to touch on that in a minute, but, they get to the house, and Jesus makes this remarkable statement to the crowd there. He says, "Why are you all, weeping and wailing? She's not dead. She's only asleep." Now, you can look at that a couple different ways. You can look at that as Jesus was just simply, taking a positive mental attitude, right, toward the situation. In other words, he wasn't telling the truth, right? Or you could, say, well, he was interpreting death as being asleep, right? Which the Bible doesn't really teach. The Bible doesn't teach sleep. When when you die, you go somewhere and you know it. Okay. Or, you can look at this as Jesus knew something that the other people didn't know. And how would he know that? Well, because he hears from God. He's got the ability to hear the voice of God. And so you got to forgive me. My mind is all of a sudden going to a comment that was recently made by a television personality about those of us that hear the voice of God. Anyway, so he says this, and what happens? People just start laughing. Say, "What, are you crazy?" They called him crazy for making the claim that the girl was asleep. So what does Jesus do? He tells the father, "Look, these people got to go. You got to get rid of them." Right? Now, why would Jesus do that? Why would Jesus kick out everybody from the house? Well, I think it's pretty clear that these people were not adding anything good to the mix when it came to praying for this girl's condition. And it's so true. When people are mocking or just flat out not believing the possibility that God could heal, or in this case, bring a girl back that seemed like she was dead, you just don't want those kind of people around, because their unbelief, their negativity, is going to poison the atmosphere. It's just going to make things more difficult. So and he doesn't even include all of his disciples, because he knows that a lot of them are yet not there to where if they see this girl who looks like she's dead, that, they're going to be able to handle that and not freak out. So he just brings Peter, James, and John into the room along with the parents, and Jesus simply takes the girl by the hand, lifts her up, and she is, in an instant, perfectly healed. So clearly Jesus knew something that no one else did, that this girl really wasn't fully dead, right? Even if she was, it would be, no less a miracle. It would probably be a greater miracle. But the reason why I don't think that she was completely dead is because he didn't speak to her to arise from the dead. He just said, "Arise." Okay. Little technical issue, doesn't really matter. It's still a major, major miracle. But I want to focus with you for a few moments on what Jesus said to the father when they get this news that, forget it, she's dead, right? He says, "Don't be afraid any longer, only believe." And I got to tell you that this is one of the most profound statements that you're going to find in the entire New Testament, because I think it accurately summarizes what God is looking for from us, that we would be willing to choose what we're going to believe. Because I want you to think about this. When we entertain fear about anything, what fear is, at its core, it's a perception, a picture, it's an idea that we have about an outcome. There's an outcome there it's horrible, it's negative, it's disgusting, it's whatever, right? And we're seeing in our mind's eye that outcome, and we're putting our faith in what we're seeing, what we're thinking is the outcome. Now, it's not real, right? Fear. Someone put it this way. They took the word fear, F-E-A-R, and they broke it down into an acronym: false evidence appearing real, right? False evidence appearing real. That's what fear is. We get this idea in our head, and all of a sudden we put more weight, more credence in that concept, that outcome that we're imagining, than anything God ever said. And so here Jesus tells us so clearly, you have a choice. Don't fear any longer, only believe. And so when we're confronted with a negative situation that we think could result in a negative outcome, the thing that we've got to realize is that that negative outcome was never in the heart of the Father for us at all, and will never be. It'll never be in the heart of the Father for us. One of the reasons why we know that is because in John's letter, he writes that perfect love casts out fear. So the perfect love of God, when we experience just how much he loves us, we come into a recognition, a realization, a revelation of the fact that if he loves me that much, there's no way that he would ever want anything bad to happen to me, right? Now, of course, that brings up the question, so why do the bad things happen? Well, the bad things happen because there's a devil, and because there are people who happen to, agree with the devil and who have this negativity that the devil can work through, right? There are people who believe what the devil's saying, what the devil's suggesting, and so they act out on those evil impulses. And because we have free will, right? It's not God doing it. It's not even, so much that God says, well, I'm going to use this thing, so I'm going to allow it. No, he never wants it. Can he redeem it and use it for his purposes? Absolutely. But the choice that we all face in life is right here. What Jesus said to this synagogue official, to Jairus, he said, no longer fear. Don't fear any longer. Don't put your faith in this negative outcome that you're imagining. Only believe. And a lot of people have this idea that faith is some kind of, I don't know, it's a blind faith. Oh, I don't understand it. I'm just going to, shut my eyes and say, I believe. No. Why do we believe? Why are we choosing to put our trust in God and not in the negative outcome that we're imagining? Well, it's because of who he is. It's because he is trustworthy, because he is, our loving Heavenly Father. He designed this relationship with himself to be based on faith. We don't see God like we see normal people, right? He's here, he's with us, never leaves us or forsakes us, but he's invisible. We don't feel him. We don't see him as we do our natural human, lives and situations. And so there is an element of this where we got to trust him. We've got to be willing to say, yeah, okay, I believe in who you are, that you're good, that you love, and that you want nothing but the best for me. But see, that's a choice. You can choose to be swayed by your past circumstances, by what other people say, right? By other things out there that have influenced your belief system. You can choose all of that. We're free to do that. God is simply saying, would you please give me a chance? It's interesting that when the Bible talks about faith, in Hebrews 11 is the so-called faith chapter. One of the things it says about our faith in God, in verse 6 of 11, it says, without faith it's impossible to please God. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. See, we have to have at our core this understanding that he is good, that he wants to reward us, that because he's a good Heavenly Father. And, what he's looking for is our trust in him, right? You can't have a relationship with anybody unless there's trust, unless there's communication. And so it's no different, because, we're designed in God's image, and he's a God of trust and communication. We've got to have that as well in order for us to be able to really enjoy this relationship with him. So what Jesus said to Jairus, man, that needs to be so deep in our own hearts, that whatever we're facing, whatever's going on in our life, Jesus is saying, don't be afraid any longer. Only believe. Make a decision, make a choice that you're going to believe in, trust in, put your life in the hands of this Heavenly Father who loves you so much that he was willing to send his only Son to live a perfect life, yet be saddled with and become the sin of the entire human race and die a horrible death so that we could be restored back to this relationship with the Father. It's all he asks. You realize there's no other conditions here. Jesus says, don't be afraid, only believe. That's it. That is all the Father is requiring of us, is our decision to put our trust in him and to believe him when he says, I have the best in mind for you. What I want for you is no less than what I wanted for Adam and Eve before they fell in the Garden of Eden. That's his heart for us. And we absolutely can make that choice in every situation. And if you're struggling, if you're finding it difficult, reach out. That's what we're all supposed to do for one another, right? Bible talks about bearing one another's burdens. Well, we want to help each other. We want to be there for each other so that we can strengthen and encourage one another in the times when it seems hard, where we're having difficulty getting our minds, shifted off of the negative and onto the reality of who God is for us, right? But that's what Jesus is saying is possible for us. And if we'll do that, you see, if we'll make that choice to no longer give precedence to what we see, the negatives that we see, but rather choose to say, you know what? I believe in the goodness of my Father, in the love that he has for me, in the fact that he wants nothing but the best for me. Lord, I trust you, and I believe that what you have for me, is way better than what's going on around me. If we'll make that choice, we're going to learn and experience the reality of it, because that's what he wants. He wants us to walk in that level of trust with him, right? So that he can show us even more of how good he is and how wonderful he is for us. But it's like he can't do that if we continue to vacillate and go back and forth between, and yeah, I trust you. I understand stuff can look really, really big, but it shrinks in size, in magnitude, and impact the more we make a choice to put our eyes on him, to look to him, to believe in who he is as our Heavenly Father, right? That all starts to look really small, compared to how big he is, and the fact that he is for us and not against us. There's just so much there. So I just encourage you to spend some time, meditate on this, dialogue with him about it, be honest about where you're struggling, and ask him for help. There was a guy in another story that said, I believe, but help my unbelief. Help me with the things that I'm still, caught up with in terms of the negatives that I'm seeing that feel so overwhelming. And he will. And reach out. Oh my gosh, please find somebody that has this same kind of faith, and connect with them and say, could we just talk, or would you pray for me? Well, you know what I'm saying? Let's take advantage of what God has made available to us through this family of God that we can be for one another. All right. Hope that's encouraging to you. It really has been for me over the years. And thank you so much for hanging out. Let's see who else we can say good morning to. Yes, Damien, good morning. Jane and Linda, Al, good to see you. It's been a while. There's Keith and Fred and Robin. John, how are you? Hey, Jose, it's been a while, buddy. Good to see you as well. Thank you all. Appreciate so much that you take a few minutes to just jump in and hang out. And again, I would love it if you'd help me out by being my Share Bear buddy and share the video so that hopefully others will jump in. And if you'd like to send me a note, feel free to hit my email or Facebook private message. And once again, all these videos are posted over on the Breakfast with Jesus 247 page here on Facebook if you'd like to catch up with that. So thank you again. I hope you have an awesome weekend and look forward to being back with you again Monday morning, 8:30 Eastern, for a little more Breakfast with Jesus. Until then, you be blessed.
Thank you, Lord, for a beautiful day. Thank you, Lord.